Welcome to Trending Unpacked, the show where we break down what everyone is talking about and why.
Today, we're venturing into a narrative that it refuses to conclude. It's a story that consistently regenerates itself within the global media landscape.
Yeah, it spikes in search engines and
Exactly. Our mission here is to understand the precise triggers that drive these repeated trends. Is the energy coming from genuine, verifiable legal updates? Or is the internet just sort of recycling itself?
and we want to equip you, the listener, with the tools to differentiate, to see what are the formally verifiable facts.
From the often persuasive but persistently misleading online speculation that really seems to characterize this whole conversation.
Because this cyclical nature is, in itself, a huge piece of the story. The public interest isn't really waning. It feels like it's just waiting.
Waiting for the next catalyst. And understanding those catalysts, whether they're scheduled court filings or just an algorithm remembering something, is key to grasping why this specific story remains so potent in our culture.
We're analyzing not just the case, but the whole mechanism. How highly controversial narratives maintain relevance in the digital age.
It's a perfect case study for that.
Okay, let's unpack the foundational background then, and let's try to focus purely on what the court records established, because that's really the only solid starting point for everything else. Jeffrey Epstein was an American financier, a figure who, he cultivated associations across these incredibly wealthy and powerful global circles.
And his legal troubles were protracted. They were defined by two really distinct phases. The first phase, which is crucial context for, everything that came later, stems from the mid-2000s in Florida.
Right.
That investigation culminated in 2008 with a state plea deal. And this deal was, and still is, famously criticized for its secrecy and what many saw as its leniency.
It allowed him to plead guilty to state prostitution charges. He served a short amount of time, but it also allegedly insulated some of his associates from scrutiny.
That 2008 plea deal, often called the non-prosecution agreement, is maybe the single most important verified fact that feeds all the public cynicism today.
It has to be. It established this narrative that powerful people get special treatment, basically laid the groundwork for every conspiracy theory that followed.
Absolutely. The lack of federal scrutiny at the time, the perceived light sentence, especially when you contrast it with his immense wealth and the gravity of the allegations, it just created this enduring public feeling that justice was, sidestepped.
And then you fast forward.
We fast forward to the second phase, July 2019. He's arrested on federal charges of sex trafficking minors in New York.
So this was the moment the federal government finally intervened, and it seemed like they were trying to overturn the narrative from that 2008 deal.
That was the perception, yes. And then, of course, there are the circumstances of his death.
He died in jail in August 2019 while he was awaiting trial on those federal charges. The official ruling was suicide.
And that event, it generated an immediate, just an unprecedented global spike in attention.
Why? Beyond the obvious shock.
Primarily because it instantaneously confirmed every pre-existing public fear about accountability. The fact that he died in federal custody, it provided what many interpreted as the final frustrating punctuation mark on the whole question of whether powerful people ever truly face justice.
So it fueled the exact kind of speculation that ensures the case never really goes dormant.
Precisely. High-volume, low-verification speculation.
And we have to mention his connections. The sources confirm he had associates across these vast, high-profile sectors.
High-profile businessmen, academic luminaries, politicians on both sides of the aisle, even members of international royalty.
And we should stress, as the sources do, that the depth of these connections varied immensely.
Immensely. Some individuals were verified travel companions on his private jet. Others had interactions that were, on paper, purely through philanthropic foundations.
And some were probably just photographed with him at an event.
Exactly. But that sheer breadth, the geopolitical reach of that association web, it just guarantees complexity. And it maximizes the case's enduring news value.
So whenever any figure associated with him, even just peripherally, makes a public move,
the algorithm drags the entire Epstein file right back into the headlines. It's almost automatic.
So if the background provides the tension, what provides the spark? Why does this story keep resurfacing with such regularity? It's not just random chance, right?
No, it's a predictable, cyclical combination of triggers. It operates almost like a set of established conditions that, when they're met, they activate the vast digital memory of the internet.
Okay, so what's the first one?
The first and most verifiable trigger is genuine legal developments. Anytime newly unsealed court documents or deposition details are released from related civil cases, it acts as a massive driver.
So you're talking about litigation that involves his co-conspirators or maybe ongoing civil suits that were filed by victims.
Exactly. These depositions and documents, they often provide specific, verified testimony names, dates, locations that was previously redacted or totally confidential.
And that's not speculation. That's new information.
It's new, verifiable information entering the public domain, and it provides tangible, fresh content for journalists to report on. It validates the attention of these online investigative communities.
And it gives social media users a specific sourced point to focus their discussions on.
Yes, these legal releases are arguably the only trigger that creates both massive search spikes and substantive, verifiable reporting at the same time.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's move to the second mechanism, which you called media and cultural content. This sounds more like a calculated revival of the story.
It is. When a new documentary is released, and we've seen examples from huge platforms like Netflix and HBO, plus a steady stream of independent series and podcasts, it performs two critical functions.
Okay, what are they?
First, it packages years of really complex information into a highly accessible, streamlined format for a brand new audience, people who weren't following it back in 2019.
And second?
Second, it often introduces a new angle. Maybe it focuses on a lesser-known associate or a specific aspect of the legal maneuvers, and that reignites the interest of people who have been following the case from the very beginning.
And the algorithmic effect ensures that the release of one new piece of media, it just resurfaces all the old media, doesn't it?
It's a perpetual feedback loop. You finish the new HBO series, and suddenly YouTube is feeding you clips from a 2020 independent investigation you missed. Cultural relevance is constantly being reaffirmed.
Okay, so then there's the public appearances trigger. This one sounds like it's entirely driven by association.
Yes, this is purely about context and, you could say, guilt by historical proximity.
So if a high-profile figure who was verifiably linked to Epstein, maybe through flight logs or specific photos, if they do something public,
like run for office or accept an award or get involved in a totally separate controversy, the clock just resets on the Epstein connection.
and that person's current news status instantly drags the Epstein case back into the discussion as mandatory historical context.
And it's not just mainstream media that does this. Online users are incredibly effective at creating these visual juxtapositions.
You mean like pairing a current photo of the person with an old one of them standing next to Epstein?
Precisely. It provides that immediate, undeniable connection that social media algorithms love to amplify. It's visual, it's quick, and it's shocking.
Okay, then we have the calendar effect. This sounds like the most passive one.
It is. This is where the story resurfaces purely because of the passage of time. Significant anniversaries related to his arrest in July 2019, his death in August 2019, or major court filings.
These dates prompt scheduled media coverage. News organizations probably have automated systems that flag them for on this day type stories.
They do, and that boosts search volume. And for social media, where memory is often tied to these calendar markers, you get a flurry of users suddenly posting memorials, critiques, or timelines related to, say, the August 10th anniversary of his death.
Which automatically generates a trend.
It's passive relevance. The story is kept visible just because the system is designed to remember important dates.
Okay, and the last one you mentioned is the political context trigger. This is where the case becomes something bigger than just a crime story.
Absolutely. It transcends crime and becomes a reference point for these huge political and systemic debates.
So when there are renewed debates about the criminal justice system,
For instance, discussions about non-prosecution agreements, accountability for the ultra-wealthy, or critiques of institutional transparency.
the 2008 Epstein plea deal is instantly referenced.
It's become shorthand. It's shorthand for systemic failure and a really powerful symbol in broader political discourse. It provides a tangible, high-profile example for these abstract debates about power.
And that operational reality just ensures its relevance, regardless of whether a new name has been revealed or a document has been unsealed.
And the current trends we see are often a micro combination of all these factors. A headline about the sale of one of his properties, a legal settlement being finalized, or just a viral social media breakdown that packages the whole complex history into a shareable video.
So the case is just constantly being refreshed.
Sustained by both verifiable accountability efforts and the digital infrastructure that is designed to prioritize high-interest controversy.
Okay, so when a story is this volatile and trends this often, the line between fact and fiction just becomes dangerously blurred.
It's so blurry.
So for anyone trying to stay informed, knowing the anchor points, the documented facts is, it's non-negotiable.
That is the essential requirement. The verifiable foundation starts with the formally documented legal history. So this includes his criminal charges in both Florida and New York, and the specific court documents associated with them.
Right, the primary sources.
These documents detail the offenses, the procedural history, the rulings made by the courts. They are the bedrock.
And we really have to emphasize the importance of understanding that 2008 plea agreement in Florida. Even though it's the source of so much public anger, the terms of the agreement itself.
The fact that it existed, who signed it, the sentence he received, all of those are verifiable facts.
That's a great point. The structure of that deal, for instance, involved language that legally shielded potential co-conspirators from prosecution, but only at the state level.
Exactly. And while the ethical implications are massive, the existence and the official terms of that protective language are matters of public, verified record.
So understanding that specific legal mechanism helps explain why so many people believe a conspiracy of silence was just built into the system.
It does. Beyond the legal framework, there are other documented details.
Like what?
Documented connections to specific individuals. These are confirmed based on evidence that has been presented in a legal context or corroborated by multiple official sources.
So we're talking about things like flight manifests and official travel logs.
Yes, things that place certain individuals in certain locations at certain times. It also includes photographs that have been verified as authentic and dated, and critically sworn court testimony that has been officially entered into the record.
That distinction is just paramount, isn't it? If a name appears on a verified flight log that was entered into a legal case file, that is a verified connection.
Right.
But if a name appears in some anonymous online list, that is pure speculation. And you, the listener, need to treat the former as an unshakable truth within the context of the case, no matter what the surrounding noise is.
And it's this reliance on documented facts that provides the necessary, structural integrity against the flood of speculation. When you see a claim online, the immediate question should be, can this be traced back to an officially verified court record, a government document, or sworn testimony?
And if the answer is no,
it serves as a valuable indicator that you are entering the realm of high-volume, low-verification content.
Okay, now we cross over into the territory that often generates the highest engagement and the biggest spikes in search volume. The speculation.
If the facts are the architecture, the speculation is the wildfire.
And that wildfire is fueled by specific, recurrent narratives. The most persistent, trending element it has to be the continuous circulation of unverified lists.
The lists, yes. These are purported to contain names of associates, clients, or participants who have supposedly been hidden from the public.
It's the ultimate internet treasure hunt. It's this promise of definitive secret knowledge that institutions don't want you to have.
It is. And what's often missed is that these lists usually fall into one of three categories. They're either entirely fabricated, or they are composites of misinterpreted or taken out of context names from legitimate court filings.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. A court might release a document listing dozens of names of people involved in the litigation, so lawyers, third-party witnesses, court staff. And that list is immediately misinterpreted and circulated online as a definitive list of criminal clients.
And that slight misinterpretation is enough to generate millions of clicks.
Millions. The third category is that some of them are just generated by automated bots designed to maximize engagement.
Wow. Okay, so another huge area of speculation revolves around his death.
Enormous. Despite the official ruling of suicide, there are these persistent, often elaborate claims of conspiracies surrounding his death that go far, far beyond the official findings.
The moment of his death introduced this profound legal ambiguity because the case against him died with him, but it also exposed a critical security failure in a federal institution.
And that confluence allowed the vacuum to be filled by these elaborate narratives suggesting assassination or an institutional cover-up.
The pre-existing public distrust, which we said was founded on that 2008 plea deal, it means the official narrative is almost automatically viewed with suspicion.
It is. And this leads to these intricate, highly detailed theories that dissect security camera footage, medical reports, internal communication, all concluding that the official ruling is insufficient.
And this speculation remains powerful because it confirms the public's worst fears about powerful elites manipulating events.
It confirms a bias. And finally, there are just the general unverified allegations.
The I heard that, or did you know that type of claims that just circulate so rapidly on platforms like X and TikTok.
And what's critical here is the phenomenon of recycling old claims. Many of these stories are sourced from initial unverified reports that failed to gain much mainstream traction back in 2019 or 2020.
But when a new documentary comes out or a new court document is released,
these old claims get repackaged, they're given new visual effects, and suddenly millions of people are treating them as current, breaking facts. This digital recycling gives old allegations new life, creating a continuous source of speculative content.
This intense engagement, this blending of verifiable legal processes with high-octane speculation, it brings us to the core question. Why? Why does this narrative hold such a profound, continuous power over the public imagination?
It resonates because it touches on these almost existential societal anxieties. It intersects heavily and undeniably with themes of wealth, power, and systemic inequality.
Yeah, Epstein represented an extreme outlier. Immense, seemingly untouchable wealth operating outside the normal rules of law enforcement.
The optics alone, private jets, remote islands, multi-million-dollar properties paired with the seriousness of the crimes, it just ensures this story captures the public imagination far more intensely than a typical criminal case.
It feels like a story ripped from fiction, which makes the stakes feel global.
And the high-profile nature of the individuals involved, the politicians, the CEOs, the cultural figures, it creates what sociologists call fertile ground for conspiracy theories.
When the powerful are involved, the public just assumes secrecy. And that taps into a really deep distrust in institutions.
And that distrust wasn't invented by the public. It was arguably validated by the 2008 plea deal and then by his subsequent death in custody. These verified failures give the speculative theories a baseline of credibility they wouldn't otherwise have.
That's the mechanism. The failure of the system to handle the 2008 case and then the massive security failure in 2019, they create a narrative vacuum.
And the public concludes, quite logically within their own framework of experience, that corruption, secrecy, and cover-ups are not just possible but inevitable when you're dealing with elites of this stature.
This deep-seated skepticism, it transforms the Epstein case from just a criminal timeline into a cultural cipher.
A cultural cipher, that term is crucial. It means the case stands in for something much larger than itself.
So people aren't just discussing the specific legal charges against him.
Exactly. They are debating the very structure of power in modern society. They're asking whether influence and secrecy and wealth truly grant immunity. The case forces the public to confront these really uncomfortable truths about systemic injustice and who is truly accountable when the legal system collides with unimaginable wealth.
So this symbolic weight is what ensures it remains a perpetually relevant theme.
It's the perfect story to symbolize the belief that the rules are different for those at the very top.
And as long as that underlying anxiety about systemic injustice exists, the Epstein case will remain a potent reference point.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've detailed the psychological and the legal triggers, but the mechanism that translates those triggers into these persistent global trends is the unique architecture of the internet itself, its algorithms.
It's the ultimate digital engine of remembrance. The structure of modern social media platforms, especially TikTok and X, ensures the story's continuous visibility. These platforms thrive on condensing complexity into shareable narratives, and they often use the shock and controversy of the case for maximum velocity.
How does that look in practice? For a typical user scrolling through their feed?
You see a heavy reliance on content creators revisiting timelines. These creators, whether they're professional journalists or just really dedicated amateur sleuths, they produce endless everything you need to know summaries.
They condense years of complex legal maneuvering, testimony, dozens of names,
into fast-paced, highly produced short videos or these easily digestible threads. And this makes an incredibly complicated case accessible to millions of new users who might not have the time to read a 30,000-word investigative report.
And this content creation model is fueled by the need to connect dots, right?
Yeah.
Often speculatively, just to stay relevant.
Oh, absolutely. Creators frequently use the Epstein case as a cultural touchstone to link to unrelated current events. If a major political figure faces an ethics inquiry or a high-profile corporation is involved in some legal battle, you will inevitably find content that tries to draw a tenuous link back to the Epstein narrative.
Arguing it's all part of a larger interconnected web of powerful elites.
Exactly. Which constantly injects the old story into new, fresh, trending topics.
And this brings us back to the algorithmic effect. Even if a verified news story is days old, a sudden spike in discussion can cause old, highly engaged content to be recycled and pushed to the front.
This is a critical factor in the cyclical nature of it. The algorithms are designed to prioritize historical engagement.
So if an old video or a thread got massive views and comments back in 2020,
even a tiny new legal filing today can cause the algorithm to boost that old material right back to the front page for millions of users. It perceives the subject matter as relevant again, and that leads to more organic discussion, which reinforces the initial boost.
even if the user is seeing old information that's being presented as new.
Right. And what about the list rumors? You said they are maybe the single strongest driver of raw search volume.
Yeah, that seems to be the case.
The specific phenomenon of search spikes, triggered by persistent rumors of a new list being leaked, regardless of whether that list is authentic or not, is an undeniable digital reality. The promise of revealing the names of the powerful provides this irresistible psychological hook.
These rumors generate far more search volume than actual verified court releases.
Far more, because they tap into the public's desire for definitive, secret knowledge. Even when a court releases a genuine document that contains names, the search traffic often focuses on the speculation about what those names mean, rather than the sober analysis of their verified legal context.
So the platforms are structurally optimized to amplify these high controversy narratives. But that structural reality, it just accelerates the dangers of rapid circulation and misinformation.
That is the crucial negative byproduct. Social media environments are uniquely engineered to reward narratives that involve secrecy and powerful elites. Stories that generate outrage and confirm pre-existing biases, like the belief that the powerful are corrupt, they receive the highest sharing rates.
And since the Epstein case is the textbook example of this dynamic, it fits perfectly within that engagement model.
It does. And in the rush for rapid sharing and high engagement, accuracy is, frequently sacrificed.
Oh, so?
The spread of misinformation is dramatically accelerated by misleading edits and incomplete screenshots of documents or testimonies. A user might see a highly sensationalized excerpt of a legal filing, maybe just a single damning phrase, without the full context of the deposition or the document's source.
And that isolated piece of information can travel globally within minutes,
often overriding more nuanced or accurate reporting that would require reading the full 50-page document.
So the case in this high-speed context, it shifts entirely from a legal narrative to becoming a cultural symbol.
That's the critical sociological point. The Epstein case now functions as the default cultural symbol for systemic injustice and elite impunity. It has become a permanent, mandatory fixture in online communities dedicated to true crime, skeptical political discourse, and institutional critique.
It serves as the go-to example whenever someone wants to argue that the powerful are untouchable or that the system is fundamentally broken.
Precisely. The cycle continues because the case is no longer just about the man or his crimes. It's about what the public believes the powerful are capable of hiding.
And that makes it a cultural debate that requires no new facts to remain relevant.
Exactly.
So to wrap this up, how do we summarize the long-term significance of all this?
I think to summarize the long-term significance, the Epstein case continues to influence political conversations and ethical debates globally. It remains potent because it is a living example of the intense public sentiment around transparency and accountability for high-profile figures. It is, at the end of the day, a persistent barometer for public trust in our most powerful institutions.
And that potent cultural significance, combined with the structural memory of the internet, ensures the narrative's longevity. As long as ongoing lawsuits, property disputes, and related document releases continue to trickle into the public sphere, even in these small increments, this story remained a current event.
It's a moving target.
A moving target, rather than a historical footnote that we can neatly categorize and just file away. This constant stream of material, no matter how small its immediate significance, guarantees the algorithmic relevance continues indefinitely.
It's a story that may never really end.
Thank you for helping us unpack what drives this complex, enduring story and how the internet sustains its continuous relevance.
My pleasure.
Next episode, we're unpacking why the Super Mario Galaxy movie is suddenly blowing up online and what this means for Nintendo's growing movie universe.